Good morning. It is Wednesday, the 17th of December. I'm Maeve McMahon, and this is Europe Today, your news' daily live fix of European news and analysis. Coming up today, at a meeting in The Hague, 35 countries signed up to an international commission to compensate Ukraine for hundreds of billions of dollars in damage from Russia's ongoing war. This, as Ukraine's President Zelensky says, proposals negotiated with US officials in Berlin this week to end Russia's war in Ukraine could be finalised within days. For more on this, I'm joined here in the studio by our Ukraine correspondent, Sasha Vakalina. Good morning, Sasha. Good morning. So Ukrainians sounding a little bit hopeful, but what have been the reactions from the Kremlin?
There's been great progress and development on the side coming from Berlin, talks from Ukraine and the European partners. But from Moscow, we've heard some radical rejection on some of the points, including those commitments that were revealed on Monday by the European nations, specifically when it comes to the European-led multinational force Ukraine, made up from willing countries to assist securing Ukraine's skies and seas. Now, this one caused lots of criticism from Moscow. This is what Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said about it. He said that the coalition of the willing is the same thing as NATO, and perhaps even worse, because such a decision can be implemented even without the standard NATO procedures for such cases. So you can see they are not taking it and not accepting it. And of course, one of the most important things that's been here from the very beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion against Ukraine is the territories of Ukraine. Russia still wants to have full control of 5 regions, even the territories it never controlled.
So it feels like we could be back to square one here because, of course, territorial concessions still the major sticking point, Sasha.
Same as for Ukraine, May, because Volodymyr Zelensky, when he was in The Hague, he also said that Ukraine is not willing and is not going to accept any possibility of Russia controlling east of Ukraine, specifically the region of Donbas. There's 2 regions, Luhansk region and Donetsk region. Let's take a listen.
Russia has invaded our home. It's destroying our cities, our villages, killing Ukrainians, our children, and at the same time demanding that we give up parts of our land they haven't even managed to conquer.
According to the latest poll, Maeve, 63% of Ukrainians said that they continue to be willing to endure Russia's war against Ukraine for as long as necessary instead of accepting territorial concessions and practically, giving it up.
Indeed. OK, Sasha Vakalina, our Ukraine correspondent, thank you so much for all those details and bringing us up to speed. Well, ending Russia's war in Ukraine is top of the wish list of MEPs gathering this week in Strasbourg. And that's where we can go now, as our Maria Tadeo is standing by for us this morning. Good morning, Maria. Great to see you. Very busy schedule in Strasbourg. What do we need to know?
Well, it's a monster day, and it was a monster day yesterday in the European Parliament. It's a monster week of decision-making in Europe, too, with that European Council scheduled for yesterday. In terms of the vote, 3 major topics were debated yesterday. We did see new safeguards for Mercosur. Remember, that is that major trade deal with Latin America, including Brazil. New safeguards were approved, but this is now a deal that depends entirely on the member states. And we should note, in particular, in the hands of the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. Of course, there was also that scrapping on the combustion engine cars by 2035. That was a big win for the German car makers. And then, of course, housing. But let me now turn to the Housing Commissioner, Dan Jorgensen, because we are going to debrief with you live. Yesterday, Commissioner, you're putting now measures forward to make housing more available and more affordable for Europeans. It's a big concern. But what can you really do? This is, for the most part, a national competence.
Well, yes, it is true that it is a big concern. We are in a housing crisis and thereby a social crisis. So we've put forward a whole range of different measures that we will introduce in the months and years to come. One is, for instance, short-term rentals. So not that short-term rental as such is a bad idea. They can be good. But some places we've seen how they push the prices up on housing and sometimes even crowd out normal people from their homes. And we need to do something to remedy that.
And, of course, is there speculation when it comes to both rent and buy-in houses? There's a generation of Europeans, and you could argue this is a big societal failure, who believe I will never be able to buy a house.
It's also the case, actually, unfortunately, that young people are not able to leave their parents' house. So I think the average age is more than 26 now. In some countries, it's more than 30. Sometimes it's because they want to buy a house and they can't. Other times it's because there simply is no renting available. So we need to build more houses, we need to also use the buildings that we have better. So in some cities, even cities where they're experiencing big problems with not having enough houses, there are also a lot of vacant houses and a lot of vacant buildings. So we need to find ways of using these buildings better, renovating them. And we're also telling countries, look at the rules that you have, because maybe you can actually regulate this yourself so that indeed these buildings will be available for housing.
And Commissioner, just help us understand, of course, Europe is very complex at times and the situation in every country is different, but is this an issue of speculation in the market? Is this an issue of permits that are not given, a lack of construction stock? What is the issue now in this market?
Yeah, well, it's many different things, and one thing certainly is that there is a lot of bureaucracy and red tape that we need to deal with, so permitting needs to be easier. We also need standardization for different types of goods and services in the building industry so that the internal market will start working here also in the construction industry. And finally, speculation you mentioned. Well, yes, some are arguing, some experts are arguing that this is indeed a problem. Others are saying probably not so much. So what we'll do is we will start an analysis and then we will present next year our take on that, because we do need more transparency if we are to deal with it.
And this is the first time the Commission tackles this issue. Some argue it's very difficult to change things from the Commission's perspective because this is really a national competence and you're just trying to do politics. So how are you going to prove critics wrong, and what do you think is going to be achievable in the short term?
Well, it is true that there are many things that needs to be done on a local and national level, but what we can and will do on European level is, for instance, state aid rules. So today they are blocking countries helping support affordable housing, the building of affordable housing, so that we will change. We can provide funding. So, for instance, a pan-European investment platform has been set up together with the EIB. That will provide a lot of funding for building of new houses, renovating of old ones. And we are also allocating funding on our own budget to help boost the supply.
Okay, so you say this is not just optics and politics. There will be changes coming from the executive. But I have to ask you now, final question, perhaps a broader politics and the geopolitics. This is a very important week for Europe, a very important European Council slated for tomorrow. Reparations loan for Ukraine. What do you hope will come, and what do you wish to see from European leaders by the end of Thursday?
We obviously hope for agreement. This is, as you say, a very turbulent time. It's also a time where we need to stand together in Europe to show decisive action.
So yes to reparations loan?
We hope, of course, that what has been proposed by the European Commission will be supported.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner. And of course, Maeve, that was Housing Commissioner and also Energy. It's a double portfolio. Dan Jorgensen joining us on Euronews. Of course, the session continues in Strasbourg, and tomorrow we take you back to Brussels.
Indeed. Maria Tadeo, Euronews' EU news editor, thank you so much for joining us for that live update from Strasbourg, and of course to your guest, Dan Jorgensen, the Danish Commissioner. But now, since the war in Ukraine and the geopolitical turmoil around us, EU enlargement is back on the political agenda. Today, Brussels is rolling out the red carpet for aspiring EU members from the Western Balkans. For the day that's in it, our Jakob Janis has been taking a look at European attitudes towards this expansion.
Once there were just 6. Not long ago there were 28. Today there are 27. These are not lottery numbers. It is the story of our European Union. And that story is set to gain a new chapter. But should it? Europeans are cautiously supportive. The latest Eurobarometer shows 56% are in favor of a bigger union. 9 countries are in the queue, including Ukraine, Moldova, and the Western Balkan states. For them, it means locking in democracy and prosperity. For us, it means growing our influence. Combine that with some delicious borscht and ayvar, and it's a richer table for everyone. But it's not that simple. EU citizens are concerned, demanding candidates should first tackle corruption and uphold the rule of law. These are critical conditions that cannot be ignored. At the same time, leaving these countries in grey zone risks ceding influence to Russia or China. And while Ukraine is a large nation, most other candidates are small. like Montenegro with its 600,000 people, which can be compared to the size of Antwerp. But as they say, it's not always about size. It's about securing the European family. The question isn't if the EU will grow, but how it will manage it. And you? Would you support it?
Do let us know your view. You can write to us at europetoday@yournews.com or reach out to us on social media. But now, coming up, we'll be joined by Vjosa Osmani, the president of Kosovo, elected on a promise to tackle corruption and normalise relations between Kosovo and Serbia. President Osmani has been in Paris since 2021, and she's in Brussels today for the EU Western Balkans Summit. Good morning, President.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you with us here on Europe Today. So, of course, Kosovo's not yet a candidate country for EU membership. It's not recognised by 5 EU countries. Will it ever be a member of the EU, do you think?
Absolutely. It's our destiny. It's something that we've worked for a very long time. And while practically speaking, we've only applied a few years ago, and we're hoping for our application to be on the table of the members of the Council very, very soon. In fact, as an identity, as a country, as a nation, we've been contributing to the values on which the European Union stands for centuries. So we strongly believe that while it's a very complex process, if the merit-based criteria is used, Kosovo actually would have been a front runner by now. But it's complex in our case, additionally, because of the 5 non-recognizers, who we truly do hope will understand that having Kosovo as a member of the Union, it's not just at the benefit of the people of Kosovo, but it's a strategic imperative. It's a security imperative for the entire continent.
And as you say, it's a very complex process. How would you rate perhaps your progress towards getting in line with EU standards and making sure that reforms are done, the most urgent ones?
Well, if we look at what the EU says about that progress, Kosovo is right now at a 100% alignment with the common foreign and security policy of the European Union. Every single decision in these areas is completely aligned, whether it's sanctions against Russia or against other adversaries of the Western world and what the EU represents today. In terms of values, Kosovo is also entirely aligned. In terms of rule of law reforms, we are a front runner, and based on international indices such as Gallup International, which was recently published, Kosovo is actually number 1 in Europe in terms of the rule of law index. It's topping all of the European countries, and it's 3rd in the world when it comes to fighting crime and corruption. This has been the top priority of our institutions, and right now, in terms of the corruption perception index, we have the lowest in the region. So these are some of the issues that we worked on hard. In terms of economic reforms, again, according to the European Union reports that we get yearly, we are the best in the region. In terms of administrative reforms, we're the best in the region. Obviously, there are still some things and some homework that we have to complete. But I think if there were no political complications that have nothing to do with reforms, we would have absolutely been the top country in the region so far.
Because now, of course, Ukraine is the top, if you like, because, of course, the situation there, it was speedily given candidate status. How does that make Kosovo feel?
We do support Ukraine's membership in the European Union. As I said, this is beyond just the internal reforms in a certain country. If we want Europe to be whole, free and at peace, which was the dream of the founders, we need to understand that we need to be given a chance to move forward. And while, of course, we would want Ukraine to complete all of the reforms that are required of the rest of us too, it is a security imperative as well. Look, adversaries such as Russia, China and Iran do not leave any space without having it used. So there's no vacuum. If the European Union, if the transatlantic relationship is not, of course, having its influence in the Western Balkans, someone else will come, not for charity, but because they have strategic interest there. So we need to make sure that whether it's Ukraine or the Western Balkans, again, on a merit-based process, move forward.
Okay. That is your destiny, as you say. President Osmani, thank you so much for coming into us today on Europe Today, and all the best for your long, busy day here in Brussels. But that, in fact, does bring this edition of Europe Today to an end. Thank you so much for tuning in. For more on those votes in Strasbourg today or the EU Western Balkans Summit, do visit our website, euronews.com, for longer reads. And join us again tomorrow morning as the EU Summit gets underway. We'll be joined by the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, Luc Frieden. So don't miss that. See you soon on Euronews.